Welcome to the rundown. Welcome to Prepper Nation, folks, here on this glorious Saturday. I am John, of course. Thank you very much for watching, for listening, for shooting a thumbs up, for hitting subscribe, all of the typical YouTubey stuff. This is the rundown. This is episode number 2, and I appreciate everybody that was there. Number 1 was pretty daggone successful. I had no idea people wanted that sort of format, so here we are. We're going to roll with it. And in case you missed the first episode, the rundown is simply a show where I'm running down through comments that were left both in the live chat and also from the replay crowd on our latest video. So rundown number 2, we are talking about, remember we did the video yesterday morning where Poland's prime minister basically ghosted Ukraine and said no more. There were some interesting comments and perspectives from the folks here at Prepper Nation. A couple of things worth mentioning. The biggest, though, is the grain deal. Several people said, the grain, it's not that Poland would have starved. I didn't understand that at the time, but I researched it when I saw those comments hitting. It's actually that Ukraine could not get it into, across the Black Sea. So they were flooding Poland and other countries with grain, and it was upsetting farmers in Poland to the point where they're not interested. The other thing that people continue to say, and this makes sense and I understand it, the prime minister of Poland is coming up for re-election, and they're saying, John, this is just political. It's no big deal. I believe that it is political, but I also believe it's a big deal. Let me explain. Okay, so if he's running for re-election, what are you going to do? You're going to pander to the majority to try and get your butt reelected, right? So this lets me know a majority of the people in Poland don't want to support Ukraine anymore. This is the writing on the wall, so to speak. And I think that's probably the case in many other countries, including this one. I can only tell you my perspective. I'm sick of supporting them. Good luck with that, Ukraine. I'm tired of sending you money. I'm tired of sending soldiers over there to do your bidding for you. It is what it is. But probably political. Thank you for bringing that up, by the way, to the folks that did. But it absolutely matters because it lets us know what the people who are actually in Poland, what they're thinking. Okay, so let's get into the live chat crowd first. And these were the top comments and, the top ones that were commented on and things after the fact. Militant said, I've been feeling the same way lately, which is very rare. I was telling folks yesterday morning, there's just a weird vibe. I think I said it was like spider web cracks or something, like something is getting ready to break loose one way or the other. Whether it is the markets just totally tumbling down to nothing, whether it is a false flag kicking everybody into World War III or what have you. It's just a feeling. It's a gut feeling. We were talking the other morning about how when you have gut feelings, you should pay attention to them. And I do not get them very often when it comes to the prepping stuff, but everything's too quiet right now. I know there's a lot going on, but I'm talking about big stuff. You know, the big stories that we typically see in mainstream media, the COVID scare, just big story, big story, big story. There's not a whole lot going on right now, which makes me believe something big is getting ready to happen. Now, that's just my opinion. And apparently, militants, and there were several people that left that comment as well and said, there is a strange vibe. There's a weird vibe in the air in terms of prepping. You can just feel it. You can almost cut it with a knife. You know what I mean? Constance left this comment. John, I hope you are ready for the storm. I'm as ready as I can possibly be, Constance. Thank you for that comment, by the way. So yesterday morning, we were talking about a global economic depression, that camp, or World War III, just all out to the wall, burning red hot, boots on the ground everywhere. There's only so much preparation you can do for either one of those, meaning we're not going to starve for quite a while. We have plenty of water. We have water catchment. We have ways to purify water. We have over-the-counter medication stocked up. I mean, we're good on a lot of things. We've got a lot of stuff that's canned. Actually, most of that's from last summer that we canned and stuff like this. So, I mean, we're good. We're good for a very long time. Um, and I would like to think that would help in either situation, but realistically, either one of those two situations is going to affect every single one of us. Unless you're totally off the grid and you don't buy anything ever, you are going to be affected in one way or the other. Okay. If we see war, and I've said, world war, and I've said this time and again, we don't have the soldiers to fight it. So there will be a draft and people will be affected in that way, number one. Number two, shortages, inflation, and shrinkflation will quickly get out of control to the point where, stuff is being rationed. And again, we're not starving for a while and we're not thirsting to death, but inflation and stuff, of course, we're going to be affected by that. We're still buying gasoline. I'll give you an example. We buy propane, and we were buying propane the other day. The small canisters. We have some of the bigger ones too, like the Blue Rhinos, but we like to stock the small ones because we have a grill that takes these things, and we have the buddy heaters that take these things, and you can swap them in and out. You know what I'm saying? And actually refill them as well. But they're $10 a pair now. And right at the beginning of the pandemic, because I had a strange feeling, I'm like, chaos is getting ready to break loose, right? We stocked up on them and they were 688 a pair. So they haven't quite doubled, but I mean, inflation is real across the board. So you can only do so much to prepare. Thank you again, Constance, for that comment. Christine, this was awesome. Christine said, "Isn't Poland worried about Russia?" I think they are. I think every country in that region, it's not a fear so much as they don't want Russia invading them next or the war spilling over into their country and affecting them directly. Everybody's cool with it until they start getting affected directly, right? But I think with Poland, um, it's more about they don't want World War III to literally start in Poland. You know what I mean? I think they see finally, I don't know why they woke up or what woke the prime minister up, but thankfully I think he's awake now because he was pretty clear. Wasn't no walking a comment like that back, the drowning man analogy, but I think he sees it now. I think he sees maybe how war hungry NATO is and the people behind NATO and the fact that they have been stacking Poland up, turning half of Poland into a military base. And I think he realizes eventually Ukraine is gonna fall and Russia's gonna keep marching, and then he's like, "You're not gonna do this to my country, you need to do this elsewhere." So I think part of it, you're correct, it is fear, but a lot of it is we don't want this here. It's kind of like a weird analogy, but it's kind of like if you're gonna have a bar fight, we don't want you doing it in the bar. Take it outside. We don't want our stuff getting torn up in here, son. We don't want whiskey bottles getting knocked over, tables broken, mirrors behind the counter and stuff getting smashed. Go outside and fight and get out of here. I think that's Poland right now. Australian woman has a different perspective. Thank you for this comment, by the way, because I had not really put a lot of thought into this, but it made sense to me once I saw this comment. Australian woman said, I took it. She's talking about the prime minister of Poland's comments. I took it as they are making their stand on their own home turf. So, my interpretation of this comment, and it's excellent, by the way, she is saying, Australian woman is saying, rather than send money and equipment to Ukraine blindly. Here you go. Here's more. Here's more. Here's more, like they've done for years now. Australian woman is saying, I took it as they're going to stop doing that, but they're going to build their own military up. They're fortifying Poland, if you will, just in case it spills over into their country. And that seems to make a heck of a lot of sense. Think about it, because most of us are in the United States. Think about it like this. Rather than sending billions and what was it, 390 some million, or some crazy number that they just earmarked for Ukraine, instead of doing this, millions and millions at a time, just sending to Ukraine, to Ukraine, this would be the equivalent of spending it on our own military and fortifying the United States of America just in case. Very smart move. And if this is what Poland is doing, I cannot fault them for that one bit. This could be them understanding that World War III is inevitable. Maybe this guy woke up one morning and he said, "Oh my God, we're on the doorstep of World War III. I understand now. NATO is stacking our country up. I understand Russia's going to win over here and they're not going to stop. We need to focus on Poland." So there it is. And that was just the live chat crowd. Let's get into the replay crowd, folks. Here on the rundown. So American Family Now says, I think the market's tumbling will be the catalyst. So in other words, he's picking a camp. I guess it's a he. I'm sorry if it's not. American Family Now, they are picking a camp, and they are saying, it may not be World War III. We think the markets are just going to completely crash, like they did prior to the first Great Depression, and that very well could be the case. I think bankers are trying to avoid that, your world bankers at all costs, because again, if they crash and there's nothing to blame it on, they're going to catch the blame. People that are suddenly out of a job are going to start asking questions. How did this happen? How did this happen? Well, COVID and all of the restrictions and the lockdowns and all of the red tape that was put into place on farms and things. I mean, the economy was jacked up on purpose. And they don't want people to know that because they're to blame. They're looking desperately for something else to blame this on, which is why I kind of think we will see a false flag, but we could just see the markets outright crash. And if we see that, it's going to affect everybody else around the world. So Basket Case Radioactive said lube up those bulk carrier groups. People, it's about time. So Basket Case Radioactive gets it. All right. They're basically saying, look, it don't matter. If it's World War III, if we see a revolution here, if we see civil war, if we see a full-on boots on the ground invasion, if it's an economic collapse, they're saying either way, it's going to look very similar. The level of chaos and the level of shtf in this country, when it does finally happen, that spider web glass finally shatters and it comes through, it's going to be bad no matter what. And they're saying, strap up, strap up and get ready for that. We can split hairs on whether or not we think a false flag's coming, but the end result will be the same for the average American and quite frankly for the average prepper. Let me see here. Tony Grotz or Tony Gotts. I'm sorry, my handwriting sucks. Sorry about that. Said, I hear that the 101st and the 82nd Airborne are going to Europe. That is correct. After I saw that comment, I did do a deep dive on it, and there are a total of, right now, 3,600 soldiers, and they are deploying to Romania. So they're not going to Poland. Romania may be the backup spot. If Poland, Poland's not going to go to NATO and demand, get your stuff out right now, because they're a smaller country. But they're also tired of it. And I think slowly we're going to see NATO probably redeploy its forces and things. which quite frankly is a win for Russia because this gives the United States a smaller area and NATO a smaller area, tactically speaking, to go into Ukraine if it comes down to that. Because I do think, look, the United States and Great Britain especially, I don't think they're just going to stand around and watch Ukraine fall. They will go in at some point if it comes to that. Here's what I think is really happening when it comes to Ukraine, though. And then I'll close this out. Y'all have given me so much to think about, honestly. Here's what I think is going on with Ukraine, okay? It's a losing effort. Now, this is not to discredit the Ukrainian people. I think if they're put to the coals, that they will fight for 20 years against the Russian occupation. I think the problem is Zelensky for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I think the West is tired of Zelensky. I think that Zelensky burnout is real. I'm starting to see this with world leaders. Some of the world leaders now in NATO are saying, Zelensky's welcome here. I'll meet him as a world leader, but he doesn't need to get up there and speak. We don't need to hear the same sales pitch over and over and over. We don't need this guy up here pandering for money, talking out of the side of his mouth about climate change and all this nonsense. We don't need him to browbeat us for money anymore. I think that many Western countries in NATO are just tired of Zelensky. And I don't think they're giving up on Ukraine. I know Joe Biden's not. He said this yesterday. For those that missed that, let me just say real quick, Joe Biden the White House put out a statement on their own website that said, if the government shutdown does happen, they're still going to fund Ukraine. The Pentagon is going to fund Ukraine. So Ukraine's getting its money either way. I don't see Joe Biden abandoning them. I don't see the UK abandoning Ukraine anytime soon. But I think a change of leadership in Ukraine is coming. And quite frankly, I think Zelensky knows it. I think he can feel kind of that breath on the back of his neck. He knows change of leadership is on the way. And I think this is why he is rolling the dice more. They hit the Black Sea fleet, Russia's Black Sea fleet in Crimea yesterday. They tore it up pretty bad, from what I understand. And I think, and they were using a cruise missile, Storm Shadow, if I'm not mistaken, from Great Britain. So he's going to get more and more brash as this change happens. But I don't see Zelensky a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, being in charge. I truly don't. But we shall see. Let me know what you think in the comments. And remember, Monday morning, we are going to be, fingers crossed, live streaming here on YouTube. Y'all take care and God bless.